Oh, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Isn't it?
That really messes me up.
Hello, Internet. This is Amir. You saw him in the last video. He's the one who had that orange Toyota Chaser.
R2.
We're on our way to Hawaiian Bros to get lunch, and I wanted Amir to give me his opinion on the phenomenal ride quality in my car before I put my springs on tonight. Currently, I'm sitting on BC Racing Coilovers that have 7K springs in the front and 5K springs in the rear. I forget what that is in American, but it's very stiff. It's too stiff for me, and it's just a bit uncomfortable. So what I've got sitting on my box in the shop is a set of Swift upgraded springs for my BC Racing Coilovers. They're 5K in the front and 4K in the back, so I'm dropping 2K in the front and dropping 1K in the back. Supposedly this will give me a much softer ride quality.
Wow.
We're currently experiencing below freezing, below zero temperatures here in Kansas City right now, and the roads here have been destroyed. Amir, that little bit that we just went back there.
That was really bad.
It was pretty bad. It's still pretty bad. Just going over expansion joints, coming on and off of bridges.
Wow.
It's very uncomfortable, and the rattles don't help.
I didn't think that they were this bad.
But what I'm hoping to do today is take the whole suspension off, take the springs out, clean all the threads on the shocks, put the new Swift springs on, and roll out with a much more comfortable and much more controlled ride. These are the springs I bought, and at first glance they are very tiny. They're a bit more tightly wound than the ones that came on the coilovers when they were made, but I know that they're also quite a bit stronger, and they're made in a different way. I think they're cold wound instead of whatever the alternative is. I honestly don't know. I just know that these have really good ratings, they're really pretty, and I'm really excited to get them on, so I'm gonna get started. I've done a few things off camera since the last video. You can see right here, I removed the resonator from my exhaust, kind of like I did on my girlfriend's car. Mine was not necessarily just out of the want for it to be louder. My resonator started separating from the inside and rusting because this car's 17 years old and has 170,000 miles on it, so it's starting to come apart. It was making really nasty noises. It sounds a whole lot better now without that buzz there, and it actually has a kind of throatier, more raspy tone to it. I also put some new tires on. These are Pirelli All Seasons. They're really nothing special. They're just new, fresh tires as opposed to the, what was it, like 7-year-old Continental summer tires that I had on there before. And these are still run flats, but because they're fresh, they're a bit more plush. So I haven't done any math to support this theory, but what I'm gonna try to get away with today is not moving the spring perches at all, mainly because I forgot to bring the wrench with me. So my idea is, because this is a shorter, stiffer spring, and this is a ever so slightly longer, softer spring, hopefully those will cancel each other out and it'll land roughly back at the similar ride height to where it was before. And if it's any bit off, I can change it later. But yeah, that's just poor planning on my part. I forgot to bring the wrench, so I can't actually adjust the perches. And we're gonna see how it goes.
Look at the technique. Hands and knees.
Well, I mean, sure, but we don't have to put it that way. While I'm in here, I'll show you a couple of the changes that I've made to this car. This right here is an R56 brake caliper. These are from 2nd Gen Minis. They're a little bit bigger piston size. They're still a single piston, but these are a common and pretty easily retrofittable upgrade for 1st Gen Minis to get a little more stopping power out of them. These are stainless steel brake lines made by Detroit Tuned, and these right here are some custom tie rods that I made up to correct the bump steer that happened after I put these on. You can't really see those, but these are roll center adjusters. I'll link the video right here if you want to go watch that about how I made those custom tie rods and why they're there. And if you haven't seen that video, go watch it because I am very proud of how that result turned out. I don't know if I've just gotten really fortunate with this install or if BC Racing did something special to make these coilovers slide out of this knuckle so easily, because when you're doing stock suspension and you try to take a factory strut out of a factory knuckle, it's such a pain and you have to sit there and rock the rotor like this forever to try to get it to come out. But for these front two coilovers, I just took this bolt out and the whole thing slid right down. It was so easy and I'm so happy for that. The rear is going to be a similar story. These two springs are pretty much the same height, but with this one being a bit softer, it's going to let the rear end sit a little lower, which I already wanted to do. I wanted to take it down just a little bit, and hopefully, coincidentally, that will do exactly what I want it to do. I've got to give some props to BC Racing because I drive this car in really bad weather, in the snow and the salt, and for as many years and miles as these coilovers have on them, I expected to see a lot more corrosion than I do. And these are, granted, a little bit dirty, but they have held up very well. All right, I've done everything that there is to do at this point. I've got the wheels back on, the springs are on, they look really pretty. I'm really excited. At this point, I'm ready to drop the car down on the ground and see what the ride height looks like. And I'm totally willing to accept the fact that this may tuck up into the fender liner and touch when it sits down. But if that happens, I'll just have to grab my wrenches tonight and come in early in the morning and adjust them so that I can drive it out. But I'm really excited. Let's do it. Nice. Perfect. Look at that. That is pretty much right where it was before. And this is just a hair lower. They match front and back now. Oh my gosh. Look at that. I am so happy with that. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Look at that fitment. Holy cow. Oh my gosh, I don't think I even need to adjust it. Wow. You probably can't tell how excited I am. I definitely haven't been wanting those springs for like over a year now. Oh. I'm gonna go drive it. Hi. Hello again. This is a wheel speed sensor. And I just finished replacing this one right here. Because as I may have told you a few minutes ago, when I took the bolt out of the knuckle to drop the strut down, instead of what usually happens with factory equipment where you have to rock it a bunch to get it to drop, the whole thing just slid out really nice. And now, while that does save me time, it also cost me money. Because when that happened, I hadn't unplugged any of the sensors yet. So what happened was it all fell and this got really tight and it popped the wire. So what happened after that was I got some warning lights on the dash. I got an ABS light. I got a dynamic stability control light. And basically I had no ABS. And I figured, you know what, that's fine. I know how to drive without it. I can just replace it sometime later. Not really too worried about, just excited to be driving on my new springs. And they are lovely, by the way. I'm so happy with these. But then what happened after that is I was doing a considerable speed on the highway. I was in the left lane having some fun, and somebody jumped out right in front of me. And I did this. I stomped on the brakes and locked up and flat spotted my brand new expensive Pirellis. So I'm really happy right now. What's happened now as a result of that is that they make this horrendous clapping noise going down the road, and there's really nothing to be done about it except to replace them again with fresh new ones. And it's really, really disappointing because I just put these on and they're fairly expensive, and replacing just 2 of them alone would probably cost me just as much as buying another full set of a different set of tires that I would really prefer to have on now that winter's passed. So that's really what I'm gonna probably end up doing, is getting a whole new set of summer tires that are probably non-run flats, and I'll save the other 2 for a rainy day, I guess. So now that that's fixed and out of the way, why don't I tell you about the springs and how much I like them, because that's what you came here to see. So I have Swift springs on my BC Racing coilovers now. They're 5K in the front, 4K in the rear, instead of 7K in the front and 5K in the rear. That's what comes standard on BC Racing coilovers for this car. And I have them installed now. To be honest, I've had them now for a couple months. Not for any particular reason, just procrastination, making the video. Anyway, you don't need to know about that. I love them. And I didn't love them at first, but that was my fault. I didn't love them at first because I followed BC Racing's advice on how to preload the springs. And what I discovered was, and take this lightly, they're wrong. So what they told me, what I watched online, was you need to put the spring on, put the top hat on, and then preload the spring until there's just no play. And then once you've tightened it up, I think you tighten the spring perch another 4 turns or 4 millimeters, something like that. I can't remember. But I followed their advice and I assembled the struts exactly how they wanted me to. And I was really upset because the ride was just awful. And what I discovered was I was actually bottoming out the shock a lot, just in regular driving, not even on super heavy bumps. So I was still getting a lot of this jarring motion. But then as I figured that out, and I started raising the ride height bit by bit, I felt that start to go away, and at one point, it stopped bottoming out, and now it drives like this. And it's wonderful. It's great. I'm actually so happy. There's another Mini. I'm so happy with them. Now that I've got them sorted out, I mean, it's just a night and day difference. I mean, you probably saw me getting jostled back there, and it looked extreme, but it's still plenty comfortable. It handles those bumps, and it... I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It looks violent in the video, but really it's very comfortable for somebody like me. And I think the determining factor is probably this. This is how I would rate these new springs. I would not have let my grandma ride in this car before. But now that I have these softer, more compliant springs on, I would let her ride in this now. The other thing that I was worried about was the handling aspect in the curvy, twisty bits. So I switched from a 7K, 5K ratio to a 5K, 4K ratio, which is slightly more biased towards the rear. And in theory, my idea was it would act kind of like a bigger rear sway bar. And I was exactly right. I've biased the spring rate more towards the rear, and what that lets me do is actually carry more speed through corners. And what I was most impressed with and didn't anticipate was I'm actually able to power out of corners sooner. And it kind of feels like I have an LSD in here now. Overall, I'm thrilled. I cannot explain how happy I am with these springs. If you're ever looking for coilovers and you're thinking about BC Racing, and you're on their website and you see that little option where they say, do you want to add Swift springs to these? Say yes. Say yes. you won't know what you're missing out on if you don't. And personally, I'm gonna recommend the 5K 4K ratio. The guys at BC told me that the 4K in the back was gonna be a little too soft, but I have to disagree. It's just so perfect. I love it so much. So thank you all for watching. If you like the video, if you like all of my videos, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Drop a like, drop a comment, share this with your friends if you have car buddies who are into going fast. What am I saying? If you like what I do and you'd like to help me out, share it with somebody. Share it with your grandma. You know she'll watch anything you send her.